Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that I have made quite a few of these A to Z of me videos where I pick 2 or 3 topics corresponding to the letter that I am on, and I kind of talk about little stories or situations that have happened in my life to do with those words. So today we are on to the letter G. I also link in the description box all of the previous A to Z of me stories, so if you wanted to check those out as well, then please feel free to do that. It was quite difficult for me to come up with 3 topics for G, I'm not going to lie, but I've got 3 topics which you will have read in the description box that I'm going to mention little things about, and they all kind of interlink with each other this time. So I'm going to talk about grandparents, grief and ghosts, which is a bit of a weird one, but let's start off with grandparents. I don't know about anybody else, but personally I was always very close to my grandparents, especially my maternal grandparents. So fortunately my paternal grandparents are both still alive. I was born in Portugal and that's where my grandparents still live at the moment. And unfortunately my maternal grandparents have both passed away, and they passed away quite a few years ago now, but I was more close to them because I grew up living in the farm that they lived on. I was very attached to them. They were sort of like second parents to me, if you like, and the way that they interacted with me was just in a completely different and more sort of loving way than my paternal grandparents. Not that they aren't loving grandparents, they really are, but I think my maternal grandparents had like a completely different way of showing love, as to compare to what my paternal grandparents show. And you know, that's absolutely fine. It doesn't mean that they love me any less or any more or anything like that. People just have different ways of showing how they love you, and my maternal grandparents were very like all about hugs and kisses and stuff like that, and yeah, I really like hugs, and you know, I like giving people kisses. You know, in a Portuguese tradition, you greet your family or giving them a kiss, not on the lips, which sounds really weird, but if you know like European countries, you know, you do the whole kiss on each cheek sort of thing. Obviously I lived with my grandparents in their farm until I was 4 years old, and then I moved to England, which was obviously at the time I probably wouldn't have noticed much of a difference because I was really young, but every year we would go back to Portugal in August in the summer holidays, and we would spend our summers in my grandparents' farm. And it was a huge space, they had a huge land. Just loved spending summers there, and they were just such joy to be around. And you know, it was always really upsetting when we had to leave at the end of the summer. You know, my grandma would get really upset, she'd just be like very heartbroken that we was leaving again, but you know, we'd always keep in touch over the phone and stuff like that. And my grandparents actually came over to England a couple of times. So they came to London when we was originally living here when I was younger, and they came to where I was living with my parents in Nottingham. So yeah, I was just very close to them. And there was a summer, I can't remember what year it was, where we'd been to a wedding for one of my cousins, we'd been to a baptism for one of my cousins, and my grandparents were both there. And you know, they both looked so good for their age. I think they were 71, 73, in their 70s at the time. And the Sunday after the christening, so my cousin's christening happened on a Sunday, and a week later my grandma had a heart attack, and you know, I just saw her like passed out on the ground, and she was rushed to hospital. And it was all very sudden. You know, my grandma was always very fit and healthy, and this happened very suddenly. And I remember on the day that we were having to leave to come back to England, we went to see her at the hospital, and she wasn't, she could hear people but she couldn't speak. She couldn't open her eyes, but she knew that we were there. And I think, I can't remember if it was my granddad or someone from my family just said, you know, Soraia and her parents and her sister are leaving today, they're going back to England. And you know, I was holding her hand and this tear just like fell from her face. We'd always go by car, and on the way back home we got the dreaded phone call saying that she'd passed away. And I don't know why, but I always remember I was playing Nintendogs on my Nintendo in the car, and I just handed it over to my younger sister and I just cried my eyes out. Obviously my mum was very distressed. My sister was quite young, so she didn't really understand what was going on, and my dad was just trying to, you know, be there for my mum. It was awful. And then obviously a couple of years later my granddad was on his own, so he spent quite a few years sort of going round to his sons and daughters' houses. My mum's one of 8 children, so we took him in for around 6 months, I believe. So for around 6 months he lived with us. And that was a very challenging time, you know, because my parents were still having to go to work, me and my sister were still having to go to school. My granddad had diabetes, so we had to give him daily injections. You know, it was really hard because we'd have to make lunch for him and kind of try and teach him how to use a microwave, which he had never used in his life. And sometimes he would forget how to use it and he would have to eat his lunch cold. And you know, we tried to make everything as enjoyable and as easy as we could with him, but it was very, very challenging. And I shared a room with my sister at the time, and my sister would have to sleep in my parents' bedroom floor whilst my granddad shared the room with me basically, and he slept in my sister's bed and I slept in my bed. But I wouldn't have changed the 6 months for the world, because he then went back to Portugal to stay with one of my aunties, and he ended up passing away as well. I mean, I was very, very close to them and I have lots of good memories. I'm trying not to get upset. I've got lots of like home videos and pictures with them. So yeah, they'll always have like a special place in my heart. And you know, losing them was like losing a parent. Obviously I'm gonna swiftly move on to grief, and I've had to deal with grief unfortunately quite a lot in my life. So from losing my grandparents, I've also lost a cousin who was 21. He passed away with brain cancer, and that was way before my grandparents had passed away. And that was sort of the first loss that our family as a whole experienced, and that was very tough. That cousin who passed away, his father also passed away with lung cancer, which again was very hard on the family. And that particular auntie who lost her son and lost her husband, she then had to lose both her parents a few years after. So you know, that was very tough on her as well. And then, you know, I've lost other family members as well. And then very recently I lost, you know, someone who was like a family member, but it was my boyfriend's dog, my boyfriend's family dog, Max. He unfortunately also passed away. And people who aren't pet lovers or animal lovers won't understand, but losing a pet is just like losing a human being. You know, it hurts just as much and the grief is exactly the same. grief is just, it's a hard thing. Like, I don't know if you guys have experienced grief in any way. It's just very hard to explain, and some days are really good, some days are really bad. Over time it gets easier, but it's just a weird thing to have to deal with. And I think we kind of deal with grief on a non-personal level as well, when there's certain public figures that pass away who we might have watched multiple times on the TV, or you know, really liked, or just knew of. When we hear of certain public figures passing away, I think it hits us as well, and we do experience some form of grief. For me personally, one particular celebrity that passed away fairly recently, who hit me, you know, it was quite a shock, was Caroline Flack, who was on, well, mostly known for being on Love Island. But yeah, I think people deal with grief in very different ways as well. So some people deal with it better by talking about it, some people deal with it better by not talking about it, some people cry, some people don't. Some people get rid of all of the possessions and belongings of the person who they've lost, some people like to keep them. You know, it's a very grey area, and I think something that we all in reality have to deal with at some point. And until you do, I don't think you know how you'll deal with it. I know, you know, I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I know that for my boyfriend, we'd spoken about, you know, many times about one day when his dog would pass away. He would always say to me, you know, I don't know how I'll cope, I don't know how I'll be. And when it did happen, I was just so proud of how he dealt with everything. But nothing prepares you for dealing with grief and dealing with how someone just is there one minute and then not there the next. When it comes to like my grandparents passing away, and like, to be honest, I unfortunately didn't attend any of the funerals of my family members that passed away, because all of them were in Portugal. And I could sit here and feel really bad about not going, and, you know, beat myself down about it, but at the end of the day, I still love them. I've been to their gravestones, I've paid my respects. You know, I'm a religious person, I pray for them, I pray that they're in peace. I'd love to know if you guys are happy sharing how you have dealt with grief, if you have, you know, what ways you coped or are coping, if you've recently lost someone. And I hope that if you have, and you're watching this and you have, you know, recently lost someone, or lost someone quite a few years ago who you're still grieving over, then you know, I'm here if you want to talk. If you don't, then that's fine. But you know, I think it's important for people to know that there is someone there that they can speak to if they need to, and if that person can be me, even if we don't know each other, then I know that I will have done something right on YouTube. Last thing that I'm going to briefly touch upon is ghosts. And again, this is one of those things that, like, I don't really speak about a lot because it's a very grey area. Some people believe in them, some people don't. Some people have experiences with ghosts, some people don't. Like, I don't know, but for me, this is obviously a personal story, you know, personal situations that I'm speaking about, and I do believe that there are ghosts or something out there. I have I've done like paranormal investigations in the past. I've seen mediums, so people who can interact with you know, ghosts or people who have passed away. And I've had, as you know, as I've said on YouTube before, I've had Reiki sessions, which Reiki sessions aren't exactly to, you know, speak or get in contact with people who have passed away, but sometimes it can happen, and it did happen for me on my second session. And this is why I have a strong belief that there is something after we pass away, because multiple times now I have seen different people and had personal experiences in which my grandparents have like come through and spoken to me, and I've been given information on little signs that I might see means that they're with me. So a lot of people won't believe in this kind of stuff, but if I ever see a butterfly coming near me, or if I see a white feather randomly fall in, you know, close to me, or if I really like the colour pink. I don't know why, but I'm really drawn to the colour pink in general, and also that, you know, all of these things means that my grandma in particular is protecting me and she's with me. And yeah, I was really unsure whether I was going to speak about, you know, ghosts in this video, but I'm not going to touch upon all of the personal experience that I've had, even down to like paranormal investigations and other things like that. I'm not going to touch on any of that here on YouTube, but I just want to voice that I do believe that there are ghosts out there, or spirits, or guides, or there is something out there, and I only believe that because I've had personal experiences with it. You know, whether you want to call them angels, or I don't know what you watching would personally call it, but I do believe that there is something there. To know what your guys' opinion is on like ghosts and stuff like that, if you believe in them, if you don't, if you believe that there is something there, if you've had any personal experiences, I'd love to know. So yeah, I think that's where I'm going to leave this video for today, because I feel like I've hit a little brick wall, and I've kind of mentioned the main things that I wanted to mention. So I hope this video was somewhat enjoyable, I don't know, or interesting. If you did enjoy this video, then please like it, subscribe if you are new here. We'll see you guys very soon with another video. Bye.